From heartbreaking defeats that haunt careers to unforgettable wins that bring players to tears, these are the 10 most emotional moments in golf history. And first, we start with number 10. It's the 2006 US Open at Winged Foot, and the stage is set for two legends to finally seize their moment. But what happened next turned this tournament into a gut-wrenching roller coaster that golf fans will never forget. First up, Colin Montgomerie. The man had carried the weight of being the best golfer never to win a major for years. And here he was, 18th hole, perfect position, just one solid par away from erasing years of heartbreak. His tee shot, smooth, the crowd, ready to erupt. But then the pressure hit like a freight train. His approach shot, way off target, landing in the rough. You could feel the tension. Monty scrambled, fought, and finally got to the green. But the putter let him down. Not one, not two, but three putts later, his dream was gone. The look on his face said it all. Pure devastation. Then, the focus shifted to Phil Mickelson. The story had changed, but the stakes were just as high. A par to win his first US Open. Lefty's aggressive style had gotten him this far, but on this hole, it was his undoing. His tee shot sliced into the trees, and the crowd let out a collective gasp. From there, it was one misstep after another. Tree trouble, a bunker, and an ending so disastrous it felt like you were watching someone's worst nightmare play out in real time. By the time the dust settled, both Monty and Mickelson had double bogeyed the 18th hole, handing the win to Jeff Ogilvy. Two of golf's biggest stars had their hearts broken on the same hole, on the same day, and in the most brutal way imaginable. Coming in at number 9, Tiger Woods, cool, calculated, seemingly unshakable. That's the Tiger the world was used to. But at the 2006 Open Championship, something happened that no one saw coming. A moment so raw, so human, it left fans everywhere speechless. It was Royal Liverpool, and Tiger was on a mission. Every shot he hit that week seemed precise and calculated, like a master artist painting his masterpiece. The crowd could feel it. Tiger was locked in, playing some of the finest golf anyone had ever seen. By the time he reached the 18th green on Sunday, the tournament was his. The crowd erupted as he drained his winning putt, celebrating with his trademark fist pump. But as the applause thundered and he turned toward his caddy, Steve Williams, everything changed. Tiger's face crumpled and he collapsed into Steve's arms, tears pouring down his face. This wasn't just about the win. It was about his father, Earl Woods, who had passed away just months earlier. Earl had been more than a parent. He was Tiger's mentor, his anchor, the man who had guided him from a young prodigy to the world's greatest golfer. This win wasn't just for Tiger, it was for his dad. Now on to number 8, and we're moving to 2023. Picture this, Max Homa standing on the 18th hole at Riviera, the course where he grew up dreaming of moments like this. The Genesis Invitational wasn't just another tournament, it was his tournament, and on this day, everything was on the line. Homa had already lived the dream once, winning this event 2 years ago and receiving the trophy from his childhood hero, Tiger Woods. But that victory came during the pandemic, with no family or friends there to share the moment. This time was different. His loved ones were lining the ropes, cheering him on as he battled head-to-head with Jon Rahm. By the time they reached the final stretch, Homa was tied with Rahm. Then Rahm pulled ahead with 2 clutch birdies, leaving Homa needing one last miracle to force a playoff. But he had a chance. Homa faced a chip that would either cement his legend or leave him just short. With a smooth, deliberate swing, the ball left his club perfectly, low, spinning, and right on target. It was good. No, it was great. The crowd began to stir, their excitement building as the ball rolled toward the hole like it was destined to drop. This was the moment. It's going in. It has to go in. But then, it hit the lip of the cup. Homa, still hunched from the shot, dropped to the ground, his head in his hands, staring in disbelief. For a split second, he had believed it was going in. Everyone had. But now, the dream was over. In his post-round press conference, Homa's emotions finally caught up with him. "When I won in 21, nobody was here, and it hurts me not to be able to do that with everyone here," he said, pausing to collect himself, his voice cracking under the weight of it all. "But I tried, man." Next up, number 7. Ricky Fowler's journey back to victory at the 2023 Rocket Mortgage Classic was a comeback story that golf fans had been eagerly waiting for. Over 4 years had passed since his last PGA Tour win, a period during which Fowler faced multiple setbacks, battled with form, and seemed to struggle with the pressure that once brought out his best. So, what happened? Well, Fowler entered the final day in prime position, playing some of the best golf fans had seen from him in years. But as he reached the 72nd hole, the stakes couldn't have been higher. A playoff loomed if he couldn't make birdie. Standing over his approach shot, you could see the determination in his eyes. He struck it perfectly, the ball soaring through the air and landing within striking distance of the pin. Now, it all came down to one putt. The gallery held their breath as Fowler lined it up. He took his time, steadied his nerves, and rolled the ball straight into the heart of the cup. Birdie. Playoff secured. Then came the ultimate test. In a sudden death showdown against Colin Morikawa and Adam Hadwin, Fowler found himself with another birdie opportunity to seal the deal. The green was silent, the pressure was deafening, and the weight of 4 winless years pressed down on him. Ricky stepped up, gave his putt one last read, and struck it with precision. The ball rolled cleanly, dropped into the hole, and the crowd erupted. Fowler clenched his fists, his face a mixture of triumph and relief as the emotions of years past poured out in that single moment. We got you covered with number 6 on the list. It's 1991, and Bernhard Langer found himself at the center of one of the most intense moments in Ryder Cup history. The entire tournament came down to one final putt, a 6-footer on the 18th hole. Make it, and Europe would retain the Ryder Cup. Miss it, and the victory would belong to the United States. Langer had been battling the dreaded yips for years, a mental block that makes even the shortest putts feel impossible. Yet, here he was, the weight of an entire continent resting on his shoulders. The crowd held their breath as he crouched down to line it up, his focus razor sharp. He stepped back, took a deep breath, and approached the ball. With one smooth stroke, the putter connected, sending the ball rolling toward the hole. It looked good. For a split second, it seemed like Europe's celebration was about to erupt. But then, the ball grazed the edge of the cup and kept rolling past. The crowd let out a collective gasp, and Langer froze, staring at the hole in disbelief. It was over. The Americans had won. And yes, we're halfway through our list at number 5. Imagine fighting tooth and nail in a playoff for one of golf's biggest prizes. Anna Nordqvist was right there, battling Brittany Lang for the U.S. Women's Open title in 2016. But what happened on the second playoff hole turned this dream into a nightmare, and not just for her. The playoff was tense, with both players locked in and every shot carrying enormous weight. On the second playoff hole, Nordqvist found herself in a green side bunker. She took her stance, made her swing, and sent the ball out cleanly. But what she didn't know, what no one knew at the time, was that her club had barely grazed the sand during her backswing. According to the rules, this meant a 2-stroke penalty. Yet officials kept quiet. Nordqvist wasn't told. Instead, Brittany Lang was informed first. It wasn't until after Nordqvist had already hit her third shot on the 18th that she found out about the penalty. Just imagine her opponent, Brittany Lang, had been informed earlier, giving her a crucial strategic advantage. Meanwhile, Nordqvist was kept completely in the dark, playing like nothing was wrong. You could see the shock and frustration all over her face when she finally got the news. She wasn't just fighting for a major title anymore. She was dealing with a situation that felt totally unfair and completely out of her control. Golf is known for its rules, but sometimes the way they're applied can sting more than the loss itself. Coming closer to our top 3, here with number 4. Imagine being 59 years old and standing just one shot away from rewriting golf history. That was Tom Watson at the 2009 Open Championship, on the verge of achieving the impossible, becoming the oldest major champion ever. Here's what happened. Watson had been defying the odds all week at Turnberry, matching and even outplaying golfers half his age. By the time he reached the 18th hole on the final day, all he needed was a par to secure the claret jug. Watson's approach shot was good. At least that's what everyone thought as it soared toward the green. It landed just where he needed it. But then, out of nowhere, it took an unexpectedly firm bounce, skidding off the back of the green. No problem, right? Just a simple up and down, and Tom Watson would be the Open champion. His first putt, not his best. It trickled across the green, stopping short and leaving him with a tricky distance to save par. Still, this was Tom Watson, a man who had defied the odds all week, riding a wave of momentum that felt unstoppable. The crowd held its breath as Watson lined up his putt for the win. He struck it cleanly, but the ball just grazed the edge of the hole and stayed out. A bogey. The dream wasn't over yet, but it was slipping further away. The miss sent Watson into a 4-hole playoff, but something had changed. The energy that had carried him all week seemed to waver. The exhaustion of 4 days of competition and the emotional toll of what could have been a fairy tale ending seemed to weigh heavily on Watson in the playoff, and Sink eventually won by a wide margin. Here it is, our top 3 of the most emotional moments in golf history. Let's not forget Bubba Watson, but before we dive into this heartbreaking situation, please subscribe if you're still watching. You must be enjoying it, right? Help us keep going. Alright, now here's what you came for. Bubba Watson had been chasing his first PGA Tour win for years, and in 2010, at the Travelers Championship, it seemed like his time had finally come. But what happened next is something so pure. As the tournament unfolded, he played with a focus that felt almost unshakable, climbing the leaderboard and finding himself in a 3-man playoff. On the second playoff hole, Bubba lined up a wedge shot that would decide everything. He struck it perfectly. The ball floated through the air, landed softly, and stopped just inches from the hole. All that remained was a short putt for the win. And then, it happened. The putt dropped, and Bubba erupted, throwing his arms into the air in celebration. But as the cheers died down, the reality of the moment hit him. Bubba pulled his hat down over his face, overwhelmed by emotion, tears streaming as he realized what this win truly meant. It wasn't just his first title, it was for his father, Jerry Watson Sr., who was battling throat cancer back home. Bubba dedicated the victory to him, saying in his post-round interview, "My dad's battling cancer, so this win is for him." Just a few months later, Jerry passed away, making the victory at Travelers all the more bittersweet. Sliding into number 2, Jack Newton wasn't just a talented golfer, he was a star on the rise. By the early 1980s, he'd already come heartbreakingly close to winning golf's biggest prizes, including a playoff loss at the 1975 Open Championship and a runner-up finish at the 1980 Masters alongside Seve Ballesteros. Newton was beloved by fans for his charisma, skill, and reputation as one of golf's good guys. The sky seemed to be the limit. But in 1983, everything changed in an instant. At an airport in Sydney, Newton mistakenly walked into the spinning propeller of a plane. The accident was horrifying. Newton's injuries were so severe that doctors doubted he would survive. He spent weeks in intensive care, enduring surgeries and fighting for his life. Against all odds, he pulled through, but the cost was unimaginable. He lost his right arm and eye, and his professional golfing career was over. For most, such a tragedy might have meant the end of the story. But Jack Newton wasn't most people. He refused to let the accident define him, finding new ways to stay involved in the sport he loved. From commentary to coaching and even promoting junior golf, Newton became a beacon of resilience and inspiration in the golf world. And finally, the big number 1. Let's take a moment of silence for this one at the end. We're talking about Payne Stewart, a legend in the making. Known for his sharp sense of style, his infectious personality, and his ability to light up the course, Stewart had become one of the most beloved figures in golf. His victory at the 1999 US Open at Pinehurst, clinched with a dramatic 15-foot putt, was a moment of pure magic. Just a few months later, he helped lead the US team to victory in the Ryder Cup, solidifying his place as one of golf's true icons. It felt like Payne Stewart was on top of the world. But in October 1999, everything changed tragically. On his way to the season-ending tournament in Houston, Stewart's private plane lost cabin pressure, depriving everyone on board of oxygen. The plane flew on autopilot for hours, until it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed. The news sent shockwaves through the golfing world and beyond. Fans and fellow players were left reeling, struggling to comprehend the sudden loss of someone who had come to embody the joy and passion of the game. Payne Stewart wasn't just a champion, he was a role model, a sportsman who played with respect, heart, and a love for the game that inspired millions. Let's take a moment to remember Payne Stewart and the impact he made, both on and off the course.